Well, hello guys, welcome back to John's Workshop, and in this video we're going to go back onto the shaper restoration again. We're getting very near the end now, and we're going to move on to the electric motor and the various bits and pieces that hold that onto the back of the machine. So what we're going to do here is give it a good strip down, a good clean, a bit of an inspection, in inverted commas, a rebuild, a repaint, and then a final fit to the machine. And as it says at the bottom of the board, and I absolutely mean this, whilst every other episode in this series of the Shaper Refurb has been pretty much well within my comfort zone and experience, this one is well out of my comfort zone and well out of my experience. So me and electric just don't get on. I don't really particularly understand it over and above basic house electrics. I'm pretty much okay with that, but anything more than that I tend to get lost fairly quickly. So not intending on doing too much serious to this, just a bit of an inspection, make sure there's no swarf, no ugly things in there, give it a bit of a clean up and a refresh, and that's probably going to be about it, because any more than that and I'm going to be delving into bits that I really don't understand. So hopefully as well we're going to get a chance to my brand new motor mount bracket that I made a few videos ago in this series on the Shaper. That's going to get painted up as part of this video and fitted obviously to the machine so that we can fit the motor to it. So without any more waffling, I'll bring you in at the bench and we'll crack on with the teardown. Okay, so here's the before shot. So we've got our motor with the pulley on the shaft. This is actually a Hoover motor and originally made not too far from where I currently live. So made in Cambuslang in Scotland near Glasgow, and the plate, best I can read it, tells me obviously 230 volts. Just having a look to see what else. Is a half horse motor, single phase, half horse, 230 volts, continuous running, and there's some other bits and pieces on there that I can't really make out because of its general state. Looks like we've got a good few colours on this. So we've got dark blue, we've got the green, we've got the grey, so there's a fair few incarnations of colours onto this. There's an earth strap, a very old looking earth strap that's, I don't think that's standard fit at all, so we'll be losing that as part of this. I really don't think that looks like it's been connected any time in the last 30 years, so I really don't know what that is. We'll check the earthing out to the best of my abilities in the motor itself and make sure that the chassis of the motor is well earthed. If that's the case, then the machine should be well earthed because it's metal to metal contact all the way through. So I'll get some tools together and we'll start taking this apart. Okay, the first job's going to be removing the motor from the subplate and the casting. I think there's two separate things going on here. I thought these were going to be imperial, but they're metric. Got a metric spanner on, fortunately, because I don't think there'd be room under there for an adjustable. Got a metric spanner on, but I can't get it off again. They're quite badly corroded. This is going to be fun. So with a bit of perseverance, we've managed to get that off there. So this is the base casting. I'm just checking this to see if there's anything ugly on this. The fact that the casting that mated with this had a crack in it, always as soon as I found that, made me suspect that I might end up finding this one had a crack in it, but fortunately I can't see anything too detrimental on there other than it needing a good clean up. So that's got the bracket off. We're going to put that to one side and we're going to come back in and focus on this. We'll get the pulley off next I'll not film that, that's just a grub screw, a couple of levers, and we'll pop the pulley off, and then I'll bring it back when we're starting to take the nuts and bolts that hold the motor casing together out. Okay, we've managed to get our pulley off, no problem. I just cleaned the end of the shaft up first before we tried removing it. Took a couple of burrs off, and then I've just used my levers to gently lever the pulley off. Interesting, there's no keyway in the pulley and no key, yet there's a keyway in the shaft. There is a grub screw, however, which is obviously biting into that keyway. Not ideal, but I'm guessing for the size of this pulley and a 1/2 horse motor, that's probably okay. So that's all come good. One other thing worth noting is this motor has got oil fillers, like spring-loaded filler caps here on the bearings to oil the bearings, front and back. The front cap's okay, the back cap's not. It's lost its spring cover. There's nothing on there, so I'll see when I strip it down. I'll see what we do with that. We may just find a bit of rubber cap or something to stick over there if we can't get this out without too much damage. That'll be more than good enough for what this is, but it's quite sharp and nasty at that where it's broken off, so see if we can get a new one, but chances of me getting that out are probably fairly slim, if I'm honest. There's not much to get hold of, so we might just look for a bit of a rubber cap to slip over the top of it, just to stop any dust or muck getting in. Right, I'll get some tools together. So we need a screwdriver, decent sized screwdriver, and they look like captive nuts, 3 of them, and this one is something different. So I'll grab a few tools together and we'll start taking this apart. So we're going to start with our toothpick and just go through everywhere there's a screwdriver slot and remove all the paint and muck that might be in the slots, so that when we do put our screwdriver in, we're giving it a best chance of engaging in the full depth of the slot. These are quite gummed up. I'll bring you back when I've done them all. Okay, let's make a start. We'll start with this one. Which is just this earth clamp thing. Chuck that up on the bench for now. And now we'll move on to our screws at the back. Good start. Two out of 2. I'm happy with that. Three. And 4. That could have been a lot harder. Oh dear, I'm starting to get lost already. Okie dokie. I'll just mark that up live and neutral so that I know which one's which when we come to refit. That's got rid of our wire. So we've got a chewed up grommet and some the reason I've just decided to cut this and get rid of it, I examined it when it came. There's quite a lot of damage on the outer sheathing. I mean, it's obviously fairly modern wire because it's got, well, fairly modern. It's got the blue and the brown colours, it's not red and black. So it's at least only 20 years old probably, but there's lots of weathering on this cable, and there's a few spots where I could see through to the inner colours, so we're just ditching the whole lot, and we'll put some new stuff in when we rebuild it. So that's kind of all within my knowledge of being able to do stuff. Beyond there, I'm in uncharted territory because I've never ever stripped an electric motor before. So I haven't got a clue where to start. So I think we're going to leave it for tonight. And I'm going to go and do a little bit of Google research to see what I'm supposed to do next. Okay, impatience has got the better of me, so I've just been round, given that a gentle tap with a bit of brass, and we've got this loose. We've cleaned the shaft up to get all the muck and corrosion off it. And that's our front cover off. Not what I was expecting, I don't think. So that just looks like a plain bearing in there, unless I'm missing something. There's some oil ways into it as well, which I don't think you'll be able to see, and looks like a felt pad or something that sits at the bottom of this oil well here. That's not what I was expecting, but that's what we've got. So oh dear, what do I do now? So that's that bit. with what I'm guessing is a centrifugal thing at the back. Yeah, I honestly, like I said, I don't really know what I'm doing here, so I'm just gonna, I'm looking for any signs of anything like ugly, like big lumps of swarf, anything that looks really nasty other than cobwebs and just a bit of dirt. Really, generally it looks fairly okay, so I'm just going to give that a bit of a clean up, and that's all, nothing more than that. We'll put that up on the bench, and then we get to this bit, which is the stator. There is quite a bit of loose metal in there in between the fins of that, so we'll at least proggle that out. We'll take the little bits of moss and grass and other bits and pieces that have obviously found their way in there since I've had this kicking around on the floor of the workshop for 12 months. And we'll probably just give that a light wipe just to get rid of some of the dust and stuff, but beyond that I don't think I'm going to do a lot. We'll take the back cover off if I can get it off, so we can see all the way through it. We'll try the same approach as we did for the front. Like I say, I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure that's not meant to be in there, whatever it is. It certainly won't be going back in. We've got a washer that's fallen out. Put that in the pot until we find out where that may have come from. It's going to be hard for me to show you this. I'll bring the camera in. Okay, we've reached a decision point on this motor after some research and some thinking. So I'm not entirely happy with it the way it is. Don't like the state of the wiring here, the way it's been done. Don't like the fact that the bearing diameter at the back that's got this, that should have this oil cap reservoir, is broken, so I need to try and do something with that. And just generally not happy with the amount of work that's going to be needed, not only to make this electrically better than it is. I'm not saying it wouldn't work as it is, but certainly after the effort I've put into the shaper so far, it would be almost criminal to just chuck this back on in its current state. So this needs quite some work. So what I've decided to do, after some soul searching and some advice from Dave Ticehurst, who's kindly helped me out with a bit of my thinking, is we're going to put a 3-phase motor on the machine, a new one, and run that off of the FD controller, which will give me variable speed without having to do belt changes and things like that. So that's the plan. So I don't have that motor at the minute. I've ordered it, so I'm going to wait for it to come. It's Christmas time now, so that's going to probably get held up until after the holidays before that arrives. So what we are going to do is continue on with the mounting plate. We'll get all the mounting plates done, painted, ready to go back on the machine, as well as the bracket, and that will probably be the rest of the content of this video. And if the new motors arrive before this video goes up, I will show that, and that will be subject to a further video when we fit that and wire it up through the VFD and all that kind of thing. So what I'm not doing is giving up on this. This is a decent motor, it's a good make, and it looks in reasonable condition mechanically, other than this oiler that I need to do something with here. So this will become subject to probably a separate video all on its own, where we take this properly to bits. We take the wiring off, we take this end casing off, clean it all up, we do what we can to make this wiring better, put some proper connectors on the end of the wires, put some shrink fit tubing on, clean it all out as much as I can and rebuild it, at which point it will get used for something else in the workshop. So I'm not scrapping this off, I'm just saying at this point it's not the right motor for the shaper, and I can do something different on that machine. So we'll get this built back together roughly just for now to keep all the bits together, find somewhere to put it in my cavernous space that I've got, and then we'll crack on with the motor mounting plates and the bracket that hold all of that onto the back of the machine. Okay, so minus our electric motor, here are all the bits and pieces complete. So we've got our two brackets, the original motor base mount bracket and the one that I made in a much earlier episode to replace the cracked casting, all painted up, and we've got all of our nuts and bolts and washers all cleaned. I've run a dye down the threads because some of them were a little bit chewed, so everything's all nice and tidy. So we're going to fit at least this part back to the machine, probably going to loosely fit this just initially, just to see how it interfaces with this bracket that I've made to make sure everything fits, and then I'll bring you along as I'm doing that. This bit is going to need to come back off again as we fit our motor to it, and that will be in a future episode. So I'll spin you around and we'll get this bits and pieces put back on the back of the machine. So there we go, that's got our motor plate and bracket, so that all fits nicely together. So pleased with my fabrication attempts on that. Obviously got the adjustment for belt tension on here. So I'm going to leave all of that loose just for now, these bolts as well, until I know what we're doing with our motor. So I'm just going to bring you back to the bench very quickly and we're going to discuss that very thing, the motor. In fact, rather than going back to the bench, nothing better than seeing it in position. So this is my new 3-phase half horsepower motor to replace the Hoover one, the single phase motor that you saw earlier in the episode. I've bought a new pulley and we've fitted that to the shaft. So just checking alignment, aligns with the other pulley pretty well, plenty of space to kind of move it about. What I need to do now is work out how I'm going to mount this to that bottom plate, whether I make some kind of interface between the existing holes that are in this bottom plate and the motor mounts themselves, or whether we just mark and drill some new holes into this bottom mounting plate. Either way probably wouldn't be a big deal. What I've also done is I've shifted around the feet from how it was delivered, so that we've got the electrical box on the back just to give me maximum clearance underneath here. As it turns out, now I've seen it in position, I probably didn't need to do that. That box could have sat on the top probably quite comfortably, there's plenty of room, but from an ease of access perspective, having that right on the back makes sense. So that's the motor, and that will be subject to a separate video, both the fitting of that to the shelf that we've just refitted and the setting up of the belt tension and everything else, and also the wiring up that I need to do to run this through a VFD so that I can run single phase into a VFD and get 3-phase output for this motor. But happy with that. Also happy with the fact that the colour schemes aren't too much different from the dark grey, so it all kind of blends in at the back and looks reasonably smart. So I'm just going to swing you around to the bench very quickly and show you the VFD that I've got, and then we'll wrap this one up. So, genius or folly, still to be determined. I knew I needed a VFD for the shaper because that was the way I was going with a 3-phase motor that we've just shown. I also want to go the same route with my milling machine. Now I've already got the motor on the mill that I can switch over so that I can run it through a VFD, so I knew I was going to have to buy 2 VFDs. I was looking at the price of new ones, cheap ones, import ones, and then just before Christmas I got this opportunity, 2 identical Siemens units, albeit different sizes. So I put a silly bid on eBay, and I've picked both of them up, and they've both come with new controllers on the front, so they've both been fitted with new controllers. Obviously the gubbins inside is the original, no idea how old they are. Been assured that they both work. That's a 1/2 horse one, this is a 1.5, let's try that again, 1.5 horse one. So that will do the shaper, that will do the milling machine. So cheeky bid for £100, got me both of those. Bit grubby, they've been used for, I think, diesel, biodiesel or something like that. The guy was running water pumps with them or something, 3-phase water pumps. So we've cleaned this one all up for the shaper best I can, giving it just a cosmetic clean up, get rid of all the muck. Still to do the mill one yet, but we'll do that at a later date. So as I said, next episode on the shaper at least will be mounting the motor, setting all the belt tensions up and wiring up this VFD to see whether we've won or lost on the eBay auction. So there we go guys, that gets us to the end of this episode on the shaper. Still got the Christmas jumper on, and if I'm looking and sounding a little bit jaded, that's because my Christmas present from our son this year was a nice visit, which was good, and also the sharing of some kind of lurgy that he's got. So I've now got some nasty horrible cold, I think flu-y type cold, so my time out here is pretty limited just because it's cold and just because I'm really not feeling like being in here at the minute, at the moment. So came out just to get this one finished off really, so that we can put that up next week. So I'm going to cut it at that for the shaper refurb for this particular one. I hope you've enjoyed that. A bit of a shame about the original motor, but I've not given up on it. As I said earlier, I'm going to do something with that slower time and see if we can get that back into service again, excuse me, which I'm sure we'll be able to do something with it at some point. So thank you all very much for watching. Thank you to the subscribers and the new subscribers that have come along, and I wish you all a very happy new year. I hope 2023 is good for everybody, and looking forward to another year of doing what I'm doing now, which is making videos in the workshop, enjoying myself, hopefully feeling a little bit more chipper. So yeah, looking forward to seeing you all in 2023. So we'll bring you back on another video when we'll be making something else.